Hello and welcome to the week ahead from the Financial Times in London. Here are some of the stories we'll be watching in the coming days. Microsoft and Google's parent company Alphabet report quarterly earnings. The European Central Bank and Sweden's Riksbank decide on interest rates. And US presidential candidates face off in the New York state primary. First to Silicon Valley, where tech giants Microsoft and Alphabet both report quarterly earnings on Thursday. Last quarter, a surge in mobile and YouTube advertising saw a re-acceleration of growth at Google, lifting revenue growth at Alphabet to 18%. Wall Street analysts expect something similar for the first 3 months of 2016. Revenues are forecast to rise by 17% to $20.3 billion. Microsoft, meanwhile, has seen a rapid decline in the PC market this year. Here's what the FT's Richard Waters had to say about the challenges and opportunities that the two companies face.
So both Microsoft and Google they're more similar than most people realize. Both companies made incredible fortunes on the PC. Microsoft obviously with the operating system, and Google with the browser, delivering search ads in the browser. Now they've both been in a position where they've had to convince Wall Street they can remake their businesses in mobile and social, just a completely different world. And so the real question now for this quarter with their earnings this week is, can they show that they can sustain the momentum? Because there's risk here. If they can't sustain it, I think the stock prices could come under pressure because there's so much optimism getting built in. So for Google, it's a question of, is mobile advertising still growing as fast as it was in the first quarter or the final quarter of last year? And for Microsoft, it is, are they still moving as fast to cloud computing?
Now to monetary policy, which is back on the agenda this week. Central bankers from the Eurozone and Sweden's Riksbank meet on Thursday to decide on the path of interest rates. Last week, there was some positive news on inflation, and the Eurozone rate for March was revised up from an initial estimate of deflation. In Sweden, March price growth increased to the fastest rate since June 2012, at 0.8% year-on-year, perhaps a sign that the negative rates imposed by both central banks are having the desired inflation-stoking effect. So, what does the ECB's recent expansion of quantitative easing mean for this week's meeting? Here's what our economics reporter Emily Cadman had to say.
Given that the European Central Bank unleashed a much bigger than expected stimulus package last month, we're not really expecting any policy action. The real focus is going to be on Mario Draghi's press conference after the event. Everyone's now had a time to think about what was announced, and there'll be questions. Firstly, splits on the council. We know it wasn't a unanimous vote. How big are the divisions? Secondly, has this made a difference? There have been some signs that corporate credit has improved, but the euro's also appreciated. That means there'll be questions about the outlook for exports.
Meanwhile, the tone at the Riksbank is likely to be less dovish than it has been previously, with the option of further QE likely to be talked down, unless there's a deterioration in the outlook for growth. And finally to the US, where the presidential primary race moves to New York on Tuesday. 3 New Yorkers have a legitimate shot at winning their parties' respective presidential nominations. On the Democratic side, former New York Senator Hillary Clinton is up 13 points over Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who was born and raised in Brooklyn. In a bid to narrow Mrs. Clinton's lead, Mr. Sanders called for voters to unify at a rally last week in New York. Tim Robbins was among the Hollywood A-listers to also speak at the event.
We have all been fed a steady stream of propaganda that furthers the establishment's narrative that Hillary is the presumptive nominee.
When we stand together, black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American, there is nothing we cannot accomplish.
On the Republican side, Donald Trump, famous for his Manhattan real estate developments, leads Texas Senator Ted Cruz and Ohio Governor John Kasich by more than 30 points. We'll be watching events closely as they unfold in New York. And that's what the week ahead looks like from the Financial Times in London. See you again next time.